The male lead lay motionless on a bed, inhaling a faint, colorless gas that drifted slowly into his lungs. His mind wandered, heavy with the weight of his long existence. He was tired. Tired of the endless loop he had been trapped in for centuries. The cycle of tormenting and killing, numbing himself with drugs, indulging in meaningless encounters, only to return again to the violence. It had become a rhythm he could no longer stand. As he sank deeper into his thoughts, a familiar figure approached quietly from the side. In his hands, he carried a small birthday cake. He asked if that was really all he felt on his 280th birthday. At the same time, the demon ruffled his hair, genuinely curious how other devils managed to keep going in such a dull, repetitive life. He glanced up at his friend with hollow eyes. He confessed that he envied him, telling him he was lucky. He would be able to die soon. He nodded, explaining that it was because he was human. The demon blew out the candles on the cake. It had been over 50 years since he had last felt a heartbeat. With a sigh, he murmured that the human was fortunate to still have dopamine running through his brain. He simply smiled and told the demon he should try something new. But he looked confused. What could possibly be new for a demon like him? He admitted that he had done almost everything, except save people. The human laughed and told him that was exactly what he should try, saving lives. The suggestion caught Hwamyung off guard. For a moment, he was stunned. Now, seated comfortably on a moving train, Hwamyung prepared to begin his strange new task, saving lives. He didn't expect it to be fun, but then again, staying home would have been unbearably boring. With that thought, he began scanning the train car, searching for someone in need. A sudden cough drew his attention. Two elderly men stood before him, politely pointing out that he was sitting in a spot reserved for seniors. Given that he was technically 280 years old, he felt more than qualified to occupy the seat, and even offered to share it. He squeezed the two men into the corners and pulled them closer, whispering with a mischievous grin that the train was full of malevolent spirits. They might not see them, but it meant disaster was near. Startled, one of the elders asked if he was a shaman. Then, suddenly, someone came running up from behind. He stood near the rear of the train car, his voice rising above the usual hum of passengers. He was shouting, his words filled with anger and frustration. He yelled about how unfair life had been to him. He claimed that everything around him was broken and cruel. According to him, he had been wronged for too long. And now he was done suffering alone. He continued muttering bitterly under his breath, then reached into his bag and pulled out an oxygen mask. He pressed it tightly against his face. After securing the mask, he took out a metal canister filled with poisonous gas. His movements were quick and purposeful. He had already made up his mind. He wasn't going to be the only victim of life's cruelty. Without any hesitation, he pressed the nozzle and began spraying the gas into the air. A fine mist spread rapidly through the train car. His goal was clear. He intended to kill everyone around him. Within seconds, chaos erupted. The gas moved fast, and people started coughing, gasping, and falling to the floor. Fear spread through the passengers like wildfire. Someone shouted for everyone to move to the front carriage. That call triggered a stampede. People began running, pushing past each other in a panic, even if they didn't fully understand what was happening. But amid all the confusion, one young woman remained seated. She sat calmly in her seat, her eyes focused on her phone screen. She had her headphones in and seemed completely unaware of the panic around her. The man with the gas can noticed her. He was stunned to see someone so calm while everyone else was panicking. He closed the canister, then stood in front of her for a moment, puzzled by her reaction. He bent forward, trying to catch her attention. She didn't respond. He leaned closer, visibly irritated now. The woman still didn't look up. Feeling ignored, he became more aggressive. He threatened her with death and raised the gas can again, ready to spray it directly at her. Finally, the woman looked up. She removed her earpods and paused her music. She looked him in the eye and asked him to explain what was so important that he had to interrupt her. Her calm tone made him even angrier. He shouted at her and sprayed the gas toward her face. But something strange happened. The gas didn't touch her. She opened her eyes and saw the mist disappearing. Confused, she looked to her right. Standing next to her was the demon. He was inhaling the gas with no concern. He smiled slightly and continued to breathe in the toxic air as if it were harmless. People nearby watched in shock. He kept inhaling until the gas was completely gone. The attacker stared at him in fear. His hands shook. He asked himself who or what this man could be. He panicked and pulled out a knife. With trembling hands, he lunged forward to attack. Before he could get close, the demon stepped in. He grabbed the man and threw him hard against the train window. The attacker hit the glass and remained stuck there, motionless. Everyone around was stunned. After everything that had just happened, the demon felt nothing. He looked around at the people on the train, alive and safe, but there was no sense of reward or satisfaction. Shaking his head, he muttered to himself. He regretted taking his friend, Soo-yeon's advice. Saving lives, it seemed, didn't give him the feeling he had expected. Tired of feeling sorry for himself, he turned toward the lady he just saved. Without warning, he reached out and grabbed her chin. He gently squeezed her cheeks between his fingers and tilted her face upward. He asked her how it felt to be saved. He wanted to know if it brought her any kind of relief, anything at all. Maybe her answer would help satisfy his curiosity. But then came something unexpected. She looked him in the eye and calmly told him that she hadn't wanted to be saved. He blinked, unsure if he had heard her right. He asked her to repeat herself. Instead of just repeating her words, she reached forward and grabbed him by the chin. She squeezed his cheeks, just as he had done to her. Then, in a quiet voice, she said it again. She had never wanted to be saved. She explained that she had already made up her mind. She was planning to die on that train. She didn't need help. She didn't ask for it. Tears began to run down her face. Her nose started to run as well, but she didn't care. She shouted at him, asking why he had interfered. Why had he saved her when she didn't want to live? Earlier that day, before the attack, she had been sitting quietly on the train, going through her phone. She was reading her messages. One after another, they delivered bad news. Nothing seemed to be going right. Frustrated, she turned on her music. As the songs played, her thoughts drifted. She remembered how things had gone wrong. A year earlier, she had made a deal. She sold her luck to a devil. After that, everything in her life began falling apart. She found herself in disasters. She was arrested for crimes she didn't commit. Every decision she made ended in failure. Her friends drifted away. Her financial choices all collapsed. Day by day, she became more unhappy. So when she saw the man with the gas can, she didn't run. She closed her eyes and waited. Outside the train, police were evacuating the area. Among them was Soo-yeon, disguised as a cop. He was searching for his friend, the demon. He finally spotted him. He and the lady were still holding each other by the face, cheeks squished. Neither of them would let go. They argued about who should release the other first. The demon grew frustrated. He scolded her for acting this way after everything he had done to help her. Tears continued to stream down her face. Her nose was running too, but she didn't care. She looked straight at him and told him again. She hadn't asked him to save her. She listed everything she had lost. Her home was gone. Her bank account was empty. Her relationship had ended. With all of that gone, she asked him how she was supposed to survive. The demon, clearly uncomfortable, grimaced. He pulled his hands back and warned her not to get her snot on him. Standing nearby, Soo-yeon watched the two of them argue. They looked like children fighting on a playground. He found it amusing. Finally, Soo-yeon stepped forward and broke up the scene. He held out his ID card and showed it to the lady, Dokyung Kim. Calmly, he explained that he was with the police and needed to take the demon, Hwamyung, in for questioning. Hwamyung frowned. He didn't want to leave. He asked his friend why he was even there. Soo-yeon gave him a slight push and said they didn't have time. Other people had seen Hwamyung inhaling poison gas. They needed to leave before things got more complicated. As they walked away, Dokyung stood behind them, listening carefully. Hwamyung turned his head and shouted in frustration. Without warning, flames began to flicker from his mouth. He was offended. He said people should be grateful to him for what he did. Soo-hyun flinched and tried to calm him down. Then a voice came from behind them. "Are you a devil?" Both men stopped and turned around. Dokyung was standing there watching them closely. She wiped her tears, pointing at Hwamyung. She said he looked familiar. She was sure she had seen his kind before, just not as unattractive. She pointed at Soo-hyun also. She told him to admit the truth. He wasn't really a police officer. Soo-hyun hesitated. He tried to plead his innocence. Dokyung asked them what they were really doing. Were they just playing with people's lives like puppets? Hwamyung scratched his head. He looked uncertain. Then, after a pause, he gave an answer. "Just for fun," he said. "I'm trying to save people, I guess." He asked her if that was so wrong. But Dokyung was still angry. Her voice grew louder. She asked if he even realized what happened to the humans they made pacts with. She brought up the first demon, the one who stole her luck. After that pact, her life had become a string of disasters. Every part of it collapsed. Nothing had gone right since. And now, even when no one wanted her around anymore, she continued to live. She said she would eventually die alone, in misery. Seeing another demon involved, playing with people again, left her deeply frustrated. Kim Dokyung looked directly at Hwamyung. She told him she didn't want his help, and that she didn't need him to save her. More importantly, she asked him not to show up in front of her again. Without waiting for a reply, she turned and walked away. Hwamyung stood still, watching her leave. A moment later, he placed a hand on his chest. He looked surprised. That hurt. Soo-hyun glanced over and noticed his friend's reaction. He seemed concerned. He admitted he was worried about Dokyung. She looked like someone on the edge, and he feared she might get into more trouble. But Hwamyung brushed it off. He told Soo-hyun not to worry. If life became too difficult for her, she would find her own way to die. That's what she said earlier. As soon as he finished speaking, something strange happened. A dark mark began to appear on Hwamyung's chest. Slowly, it spread upward, crawling across his skin and reaching his face. His eyes widened. He hadn't expected that. He turned to Soo-hyun and told him to find out which devil Dokyung had made a deal with. Soo-hyun was confused. Just moments ago, Hwamyung had acted like he didn't care at all. But Hwamyung shook his head. He said it wasn't about caring. He just wanted to check something. Then the two of them left the scene. They didn't notice that the man who had been stuck to the train window was now gone. Elsewhere, Dokyung was walking across a bridge. She stopped and looked out at the water below. Beyond that, she could see the lights of the city. It was a beautiful view. As she stood there, she remembered what the lucky demon had told her. It had only taken 1 year. Just 1 year for her to lose everything. She placed a hand on her chin and thought about what might come next. Would she really end up begging on the streets? Struggling just to survive? Frustrated, she yelled out over the water. She wanted to know what she had done to deserve all of this. Then, a voice responded from behind her. "You deserve it," someone said. She turned around, startled. It was the man from the train, the one who had tried to release poison gas. He lunged forward and grabbed her by the neck. He shouted at her, blaming her for what had happened to him. In his mind, it was all her fault because she ignored him earlier. He ripped off his mask and showed her his face. It was burned and deformed. He wanted to know if she had found him funny back then. Choking, Dokyung asked why he was after her. She reminded him that it wasn't her who had hurt him. It was the devil who stopped him. The man just laughed. He said he couldn't take on Hwamyung. The demon was too strong. So instead, he would take out his anger on her. He added that she was annoying anyway, and told her to just hurry up and die. With that, He pushed her off the bridge. As she fell through the air, she saw the man's face, laughing. She braced herself for the worst. But just before she hit the water, a figure appeared in front of her. Hwamyung jumped over the guardrail without hesitation. As he fell through the air, a pair of wings unfolded from his back. Under the night sky, they spread wide. He flew downward, chasing after Dokyung. She looked up and saw him coming. A flicker of hope appeared on her face. He reached out and caught her in midair. Wrapping his arms around her waist, he held her tightly. Just before they hit the water, he leaned in close and whispered in her ear, "Your contract. I will destroy it." The two of them crashed into the river, disappearing beneath the surface. Later, under the moonlight, 3 figures moved near the shoreline. Soo-yoon had one hand wrapped around Dokyung, helping her out of the water. With the other hand, he dragged Hwamyung across the sand by his ankle. As he pulled his friend, he scolded him. "Why jump into the river to save someone if you can't swim? What good are wings if you're going to end up drowning anyway?" Hwamyung didn't respond. He lay face up on the ground, soaked and gasping. But one thought kept repeating in his mind. "Make a contract with me," he mumbled over and over again. Soo-yeon shook his head and brought Dokyung over to the waiting paramedics. A stretcher was already set up. He helped her onto it and told the medics to take care of her first. Then he turned back and wiped water from his own face. He glanced at Hwamyung and wondered who he was trying to make a contract with. His last one had been canceled 100 years ago. Behind him, he could still hear Hwamyung muttering. "Don't die," Hwamyung begged quietly, his voice fading in and out. Soo-yeon let out a long sigh. He couldn't figure out what was going on in his friend's head. A short while later, they were all taken to a large mansion. Inside, Hwamyung lay flat on the floor, hands crossed over his chest. He looked unconscious. Then, without warning, he sat up with a loud gasp. His eyes darted around the room. As he took in his surroundings, he suddenly jumped 10 feet into the air and screamed. Right in front of him, Kim Dokyung was lying in his bed. She was asleep and wearing pajamas. In his panic, Hwamyung knocked over a vase. It flew across the room, heading straight toward her face. Before it could land, a hand reached out and caught it. Soo-yeon stood beside the bed, holding the vase and shaking his head. He let out a quiet sigh. He told Hwamyung this was exactly why he always insisted he get a proper bed. What was the point of having only one bed in a mansion this big? Hwamyung didn't reply. He was now squatting in the corner, overwhelmed, staring at the floor in a full-blown mental breakdown. Soo-yeon wasn't finished. He looked around the room, then turned back to Hwamyung and asked him to clean up. His voice was firm. The room was a mess. Clothes on the floor, broken objects scattered across the shelves, furniture out of place. He reached his limit and nearly had a breakdown. Hwamyung blinked in confusion. He asked if he was really expected to clean. From his point of view, the room should clean itself once he left. That's how things usually worked for him. Soo-yeon couldn't believe what he was hearing. He snapped back, asking if Hwamyung thought this was some kind of magical world. How could a room possibly clean itself? And if Hwamyung really wanted him to clean up after him, he'd better be ready to offer a raise. But Hwamyung still seemed convinced that everything in the human world should simply fall into place. He took the vase from Soo-yeon's hand and examined it. A single berry was blooming on the flower inside. Pointing at it, he said this was the reason he saved that human. Soo-yeon rolled his eyes. He reminded him that he was the one who actually did the saving. Both of them. But Hwamyung shrugged. He said it didn't matter who saved whom. What mattered was the berry that had appeared. Elsewhere in the mansion, Kim Dokyung was facing what felt like the battle of her life. Armed with nothing but her fists, she stood firm, confronting the 2 men who had dragged her into this unknown place. The 2 men were more amused than alarmed. Soo-yeon smiled gently. He explained they were in a mansion located on a private estate in Seoul. He asked her to calm down, but Hwamyung wasn't focused on that. He had a more important question. He asked her directly if she had given her luck to the lucky devil. Dokyung was startled. She asked how he knew, then jokingly wondered if devils had a group chat or something. Soo-yun spoke up. He proudly said that he was the one who found out. It was part of his job. He investigated, gathered information, even cleaned up after others. Hwamyung stepped closer. He looked at Dokyung and said he could restore her luck if she agreed to sign a contract. But she immediately rejected the idea. She looked him up and down and scolded him. She asked if he was seriously trying to trick her into another contract. Then she asked if his type of demon was called an ugly devil. Hwamyung shut his eyes tightly and took a breath. Then, in a quieter voice, he explained that he was a demon who fed on disillusionment. He told her that signing the contract wouldn't cause her any further loss. All she had to do was transfer her disillusionment to this plant. As she did, the berries on it would grow, and he would take care of the rest. Hwamyung continued speaking, his tone calm and steady. He told Dokyung she was actually lucky. Normally, he didn't make contracts with humans, but she was different. He considered her a special case. He explained that it usually took a human an entire year to make a flower like his bloom, but she had done it in just one day. That kind of reaction was rare. Feeling somewhat proud, he opened his eyes, expecting to see her listening closely, maybe even a little impressed. Instead, he saw nothing but empty space and Soo-yun. Soo-yun was sweeping the floor, completely unbothered. Stunned, Hwamyung asked where Dokyung had gone. Without looking up, Soo-yun replied that she hadn't listened to a single word. She had left a long time ago. Outside, Dokyung was trying to leave the estate. She pushed through the garden, but the plants were dense and overgrown. Thick vines and twisting branches blocked every path. She muttered to herself, frustrated. She asked why there was no way out of the place. Just as she said that, a pair of hands grabbed her under the arms and lifted her off the ground. She was ready to scold whoever it was. But the voice that spoke got to her first. It was Hwamyung. He scolded her for stepping on his crops. Dokyung argued back. She said they were just weeds, not real crops. Hwamyung muttered that it was a plant he had raised with his own blood and sweat over many years. He called her mean. But as they rose above the garden together, Hwamyung suddenly stopped talking. He looked down. All the flowers in the garden had started to bloom. Meanwhile, in a crowded part of Seoul, a young man in a white hoodie stood near a busy street. He was handing out tickets. Two young men stopped to take one. They opened it and saw pictures of a devil along with an invitation to sign a contract. They were intrigued. They thought it was some kind of marketing concept, maybe an art project. They decided to go for it since it was free. And it came with a bottle of perfume. After collecting their free items, the two left smiling. Behind them, the man in white waved them off. He was still grinning. It was the lucky devil. He walked back to his table and stretched. He seemed proud of himself. 17 contracts in one day. Not bad. People must really like perfume. Elsewhere, a news broadcast was playing online. The report said that at 3 p.m. earlier that day, a 5-story building had collapsed during a university festival. Emergency teams were on the scene. Investigations were ongoing. In the background, a rescue worker shouted. They had spotted someone trapped beneath the rubble. He called for help. Rescue workers rushed toward the rubble, pulling someone out as quickly as they could. To their surprise, it was a young man. He opened his eyes slowly and sat up without panic. His face was calm. One of the medics leaned in, clearly worried. He asked if the boy was all right. The boy didn't answer the question. Instead, he asked something else. How many people died? The medic hesitated. The question caught him off guard. The boy repeated himself, this time more clearly. He wanted to know how many deaths had been reported. The medic quickly checked his phone. Then he looked up and replied, 17. The boy gave a small smirk. He stood up slowly. The medics instinctively took a step back. He didn't pay them any attention. Without another word, he walked away from the scene. As he walked, he muttered to himself, Those people were really unlucky. Later that evening, the lucky devil sat alone in a dark apartment. The walls were bare and the room had a cold, eerie feel. He was smiling as he held his injured leg. Something must always go wrong, he said quietly to himself. The television in the background continued playing. A news anchor announced that 17 people had died in the building collapse. Investigations were still ongoing. This was exactly the result he had hoped for. But a question bothered him. Why hadn't he been able to collect the unused luck from the people who died? He leaned forward, rested his chin on his hand, and thought about it. Those people hadn't used up their luck. He was sure of it. Meanwhile, he had used quite a bit of his own luck just to escape without serious injuries. Something didn't add up. With a tired sigh, he lay back on the bed. He closed his eyes, trying to figure out why things hadn't gone according to plan. Then, a thought came to him. The contract. The one he made over a year ago. I wasn't able to use all her luck, he whispered. He sat up, grabbed his phone, and started typing. He was messaging the girl he made the contract with. It was none other than Kim Dokyung. He sent a message informing her that he'll be seeing her soon. He typed a random number to send the message to, confident it'll be hers. After all, I am pretty lucky, he said, laughing to himself. Meanwhile, Dokyung was having a terrible day. She hadn't seen the message. She stood inside a small cafe wearing her new work uniform. Through a hole in the wall, she stared outside. A car had crashed into the building and caught fire. She had just started this job. Now it was already over. Later, she sat alone on a bench near the sidewalk. Her uniform was stained with smoke. Her face looked tired. Another day, another disaster. Kim Dokyung sat quietly on the bench, lost in thought. She went over everything that had happened lately. The collapsed cafe, the ruined jobs, the endless bad luck. After all of that, she came to a conclusion. There couldn't be a single trace of luck left in her life. Frustrated, she pulled off her apron and tossed it aside. Her cap followed soon after. She sat there, defeated, contemplating how she'll survive without a job. She asked herself out loud how much longer she was supposed to live like this. A life filled with strange accidents, lost chances, and silent suffering. Do I really have to die for it to end? She muttered. Or will it only stop when I starve without a single coin left? Then, a voice came from above. Yes, that's right. The voice sounded cheerful, almost too cheerful. Dokyung looked up, startled. She was stunned. At first, she didn't recognize him. But then he spoke again. Dokyung, how have you been? That voice. She remembered it. The lucky devil. The one who had made the contract with her. The one who had cursed her life. She stood up quickly, anger flashing in her eyes. She asked him why he was here. He smiled and said he simply wanted to visit the person he had made a contract with, face to face. Then, from his jacket, he pulled out a small knife and tossed it at her feet. You've been enduring on your own all this time, he said. He added that every person who made a deal with him had to end in sorrow. That's what protected his own luck. Turning his back to her, he began to walk away. So why don't you just die already? I came all the way here. His words were cold, but Dokyung didn't flinch. She called after him, asking for her luck back. He stopped in his tracks. What did you say? He asked. Dokyung repeated herself. She said she knew she could cancel the contract, and she wanted her luck returned. The devil laughed, bent down, and picked up the knife. He placed it in her hands. He asked how she knew about voiding her contract. She told him she heard it from another demon. He asked her to kill him with the knife. That was the easiest way to void the contract. He said she didn't have the courage to. Then he pushed her aside and called her pathetic. As he walked away, he muttered one last thing. An unfortunate soul floundering in such a hellish life. Wouldn't be able to kill me no matter what they tried. His words hit her hard. Dokyung stared down at the blade in her hand. Then, a memory surfaced. She remembered the face of someone who once told her not to die like her. That single image gave her the strength she needed. Without hesitation, she rushed forward. Her hand tightened around the knife as she approached the lucky devil from behind. She shoved the blade into his back. The devil gasped, eyes wide in shock. Out of nowhere, a basketball appeared. Instead of stabbing the lucky demon, Dokyung had plunged the knife into the ball. It deflated instantly. Luck, as always, had been on his side. From the other end of the park, a boy shouted, asking for his ball to be tossed back. But it was too late. The ball was flat and useless now. The demon casually tossed the knife into the air and caught it with ease. He hadn't expected Dokyung to actually go through with it. The courage to stab him caught him off guard. Grinning coldly, he told her, "Dragging this out only made my job harder. It could have ended cleanly, if you'd just killed yourself like your friend." That was the wrong thing to say. Fury surged through Dokyung. She clenched her fist and swung hard, landing a solid blow across his face. The demon hit the ground, tumbling backward. Dokyung stood over him. "Looks like your good fortune can't protect you from a punch," she said. "Especially since that luck was never yours to begin with. You stole it." The demon's eyes burned with rage. He climbed to his feet, threatening to kill her himself. But before he could move, the boy with the basketball stepped between them. "Hey," Soo-yeon said as he appeared from nowhere. "You popped my ball. You're paying for it." He pointed to the knife. "And you shouldn't be carrying something like that if you don't even know how to use it." Just then, a voice spoke from behind the demon. It was Hwamyung, calm but firm. He told the demon to stop deceiving humans into signing away their luck. He reminded him that using scams and making multiple contracts at once was a serious taboo in the demon world. "I suggest you listen when I speak," Hwamyung said, "because I'm way older than you." The lucky demon scoffed. "I recognize you," he said. "You're famous." He sneered. "You're the first demon ever driven out of hell, banished for loving humans too much." The words hit Hwamyung hard. His eyes darkened. Without another word, he snapped the knife in two, the metal breaking in his hand like it was nothing. Then he grabbed the lucky devil by the neck and lifted him off the ground. His grip tightened around the demon's throat. Turning to Dokyung, Hwamyung asked one final time, "If I can get your luck back, will you sign a contract with me?" Above them, on a nearby bridge, a truck driver was making his way across the road. The night was quiet, the traffic light. Then suddenly, something blew across his path. It hit the windshield, startling the driver. In a moment of panic, he lost control of the wheel. The truck crashed through the guardrail and plummeted off the bridge. It came down hard, right above Hwamyung. The impact was violent. The truck crushed him completely. As the dust settled, the lucky devil, though injured, was still alive. He smirked down at the wreckage, a faint smile on his face. Then, the scene cuts to 2 days earlier. Hwamyung was lying on a hospital-style bed, breathing in a clear gas through a mask. He stayed still for several minutes. Then, slowly, he removed the mask and exhaled. A small puff of fire escaped his mouth. Nearby, Soo-yeon was dusting a closet. He looked over and commented that the symptoms seemed worse. He asked Hwamyung if it was just his imagination, but Hwamyung coughed. "Maybe it's finally time for me to die," he joked. Even the special medicines no longer had any effect. He sighed, frustrated at his own decline. Soo-yeon, holding a feather duster, changed the subject. He asked about the berries that had appeared when Dokyung was in the mansion. He'd heard those berries had helped suppress Hwamyung's symptoms. Hwamyung sighed again. All the berries withered the moment she left the house. That meant he had no cure left. Soo-yeon also sighed, disappointed. Trying to lighten the mood, he joked that his boss could always sign a contract with him. After all, cleaning the mansion every day left him in a constant state of despair. Hwamyung waved him off. He asked instead if Soo-hyun had found out the name of the demon who made a contract with Dokyung. Soo-hyun nodded. He handed Hwamyung the findings from the investigation. On the screen of the phone was a news article. It reported that 17 people had died in a building collapse during a university festival. Soo-hyun was certain this was the work of that same demon. Hwamyung stared at the phone screen in silence. If this demon was so powerful, why had he never heard of him before? Soo-hyun didn't miss a beat. "That's probably because you're an outcast," he said plainly. "You were banished from hell, you don't have any friends, and you spend most of your time lying in bed." Hwamyung groaned in irritation and tossed the phone back at him. "Whatever," he muttered, turning away. In his mind, none of it mattered. If he could get rid of the demon, then he could move forward and get Dokyung to sign a contract. That was all he cared about. He asked for the demon's name, but Soo-hyun shook his head. He hadn't been able to figure out the demon's human identity. Hwamyung clarified. He wasn't asking about the demon. He was asking about the girl. Soo-hyun couldn't believe his boss still didn't remember her name, but he answered anyway. "It's Dokyung," he said. Back at the site of the truck crash, the truck had landed on Hwamyung. The crowd watched in fear and confusion. Standing nearby, the lucky devil dusted off his clothes. He believed the fight was over. But then a sound broke through the silence. He turned around. Behind him, Hwamyung appeared, bruised, bleeding, but alive. He was dragging the unconscious truck driver out of the wreckage. Through the pain, he managed to speak. He called out Dokyung Kim's name. Dokyung stepped forward instinctively, ready to run to him. She pointed at Hwamyung and said he was bleeding. He needed help. But Soo-hyun shook his head. He warned her to stay back. Hwamyung squatted down on the ground, breathing heavily. He reminded her of her promise, to think about signing a contract with him. She turned to Soo-hyun and whispered that Hwamyung must have hit his head too hard. The lucky devil wasn't impressed. He didn't take Hwamyung seriously. But then he saw Hwamyung rise into the air. Wings spread wide, he flew upward, aiming straight at him. The lucky devil didn't move. As Hwamyung approached, he reached out and grabbed him by the throat. Looking at Hwamyung's battered condition, he smirked. "I won't even need to use luck," he said. "I can beat you just like this." Then he slammed Hwamyung into the ground. Watching him lie there, the lucky devil mocked him. He said he expected more from someone who was supposed to be a legendary demon. Enjoying the story so far? Leave a comment below if you want to see part 2. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next episode.